Okay, let's get right into it. There's a really controversial idea floating around that could completely change how credit cards work in America. We're talking about capping the interest rates they can charge. Now, this one idea could send ripples through the entire economy, and in this explainer, we're going to break down what it all means for you, for the banks, and for the country. So let's start with the big question. Just imagine, for a second, a world where the absolute maximum interest rate on your credit card, no matter what your credit score is, could never go above 10%. How would that change things? Well, to really get the impact, we've got to look at where we are right now. For most people carrying a credit card balance, this number is their reality. The average APR, that's annual percentage rate, is hovering around a jaw-dropping 20%. Seriously, it is one of the most expensive ways to be in debt. And this is the proposal. A hard cap, 10%. Now, the difference between 20 and 10% isn't just a number, you know? It represents a massive, massive shift in our financial world. So, why would anyone even consider such a drastic move? Well, you have to look at the staggering cost of the way things are now. And to really get a feel for what 20% interest actually looks like, we're going to use an analogy based on the average American's credit card debt. It all starts here. For Americans who actually carry a balance from month to month, the average debt is about $8,000. Now, if you're only making minimum payments on that, it feels like you're running in place, right? Barely even touching the original amount you owe. Okay, now this is where it gets really wild. Warren Buffett, probably the greatest investor ever, his company averaged just under a 20% return a year to become one of the wealthiest in the world. Your credit card company? They're getting that same legendary world-class return, but from your debt. And this, right here, is the raw, insane power of compounding interest. If you had invested that $8,000 and somehow earned 20% for 40 years, it would grow to over $11 million. But with credit card debt, that fortune isn't going to you. It's going to the lender. This quote from one of our sources just hits you, right? It perfectly captures the personal impact. This isn't just a numbers game on a spreadsheet. For a lot of people, it's a trap, one that can feel almost impossible to escape, and it just destroys personal wealth along the way. So you can see why this is such a hot topic. And that brings us to the first major argument in this whole debate, the case for the consumer. People who support this cap see it as a desperate, much-needed financial lifeline for millions. The logic is pretty simple. A cap would instantly lighten the load for households buried in debt. It would stop that massive transfer of wealth we just talked about, and, this is key, it might actually force a kind of financial discipline, making it harder to get credit you can't really afford. It could help break a cycle that, for some, literally destroys families. Now, this is a really important part of their argument. It might sound harsh, but the idea is that telling someone no for a loan isn't about being mean. It's about stopping them from digging a financial hole that could completely ruin their future. Think of it as a painful but necessary cool-down for our finances. But of course, it is never that simple, is it? Critics are sounding the alarm, warning that capping rates could set off a dangerous, unintended chain reaction that could ripple across the whole economy. Their entire argument hangs on this one super fundamental financial idea, risk versus reward. Lenders charge higher interest rates to make up for the higher risk of lending to someone with, say, a rocky credit history. If you take away their ability to get a high reward, you also take away their willingness to take on that risk. And that can lead to this, a potential domino effect. So follow the logic here. First, the rate cap gets imposed, which cuts into lender profits. So what do? They tighten their lending standards to avoid risk. That means millions of people, especially those with lower credit scores, could just get cut off from credit completely. And if they can't borrow, they can't spend, which could end up slowing down the entire economy. So the crucial takeaway here is that the impact wouldn't just stop with the banks. Yeah, credit card companies would make less money. But people with bad credit? They could be left out in the cold. Retailers who rely on people spending on credit could really suffer. And that potential economic slowdown? That's exactly why Wall Street and investors really, really hate this idea. All of this leaves us with a real financial puzzle. This isn't a simple story of good guys versus bad guys. It's really a clash between two very different, competing visions for what a healthy economy should even look like. So let's just put it side by side. From the consumer's point of view, this system is broken. It creates these debt traps that just demolish individual wealth, and we need a painful reset for everyone's long-term financial health. But from the bigger, economic point of view, that exact same system is what fuels consumer spending, which is what drives growth. Mess with that, and you could risk a recession. And that leaves us with this final question to really chew on. What's the ultimate goal?
Is a healthy economy one that's defined by constant growth and high spending, even if a lot of it is fueled by debt? Or is it one where the people in it, its citizens, are financially stable and free from that crushing week of high interest payments? There's no easy answer, but that question, that's the heart of this entire debate.